Hello everyone, thank you for joining me today on my tips on ballasting Kato Unitrack. I did maybe a couple years ago a basic ballasting instructional video. This one I want to get more into the finer details of things. So number one, don't use Woodland Scenic's ballast. It's made of crushed walnut shell. The consistency of it is way too coarse for an N scale. When you break it down, each granule in Woodland Scenics measures about 3 inches in N scale, which is a little bit too coarse for N scale. So if you can find it, if you can get it, I really prefer the Arizona Rock and Mineral Company brand. It's true N scale granular ballast. I chose the Northern Pacific Gray, which closely resembles what they use in downtown San Diego. So you can see on the edges here of the road plates, I've gone a little bit, or actually all the way to the road plate incline there. And that's because I noticed some photographs of downtown San Diego over by the Santa Fe station. They kind of, in areas about this large, do ballast all the way up until the concrete. So let me go into the fine-tuning methods I'm doing here. I like to paint, I feel it's important to paint a layer of full-strength white glue or Woodland Scenic glue along the edges of the roadbed of the Kato track, because that enables ballast to actually adhere to the side of the roadbed as you're brushing it away from the ties, sleepers, and the rails. In my book, if you don't do this, it ends up really kind of sliding off that sharp edge of the roadbed, and you have to apply a lot more ballast to get it to cover that incline, which leads to a wider ballast footprint that I feel looks good. So I add that full strength scenic glue to both sides of the roadbed. Let me adjust my chair here. And then I take, it's also important to have the correctly sized brushes to do this. This brush happens to be just about the perfect width to match the ties and the ends of the sleepers and everything. So to get the proper amount of ballast on there, I pour just enough to kind of pile up into the center of the rails there. And then I take my brush and I just kind of set it up here and just bulldoze down the middle there. And I do that a couple times. Make a couple runs with that. In a situation like this where there's not quite enough ballast there on the sides, I will just add a little bit more to the center of the rails there, but I don't want to add it to the sides. I want to add it to the center and allow the brush to whip it off onto the side of the roadbed there. So let's see if we can fix that. Yeah, there we go. I see, I'm not gatekeeping here or anything, but the ballasting part is important to me. I see a lot of folks, a lot of loose ballast around the edges, like a ton of ballast, too much overflow going on stuff. And I will talk about how we deal with that at the end of the video. So I just go like this with that brush. That is the width of the ties and the sleepers. And there you go. We got the basic ballast bed going on there. And so I'll do that enough to where I can actually see, because you don't really want to cover up your ties and sleepers too much with that ballast. But it's nice to leave a little bit in between the center of the tie is in between the rails there. So that gives me a kind of the perfect width, not too much ballast coming off the sides of the Kato roadbed. And then what I do at the end is, it's also important because you see a lot of layouts where, see all this loose ballast all around the edges. After you start gluing things down, it kind of looks a little sloppy. So you take your brush at the end when you're all done, and you start just gently grooming that back in. I'm not going to do it all right now because that's the last step. Right now, I truck this out. I plan on completing this whole 4-foot layout, the ballast, in the next 2 hours probably. So at the very end, after I go again with my brush around the center of the rails to make sure I have the ties and the sleepers clear enough to the level I want, I'll go around both sides and groom in that excessive sprinkle. And that way when you spray your alcohol and your isopropyl alcohol and your scenic cement, you have a decent looking non-sloppy job going on there. Okay. And so I should have had this set up before I started the video, but I'll just show you what I use here. I'm grabbing the bottles in the background. I don't take a dropper to apply the alcohol or especially the scenic glue. I just feel for me it's way too tedious and time consuming to go around with a dropper, you know, dripping in all of your scenic glue all over the place. So I just go at it with a first bottle of isopropyl alcohol. I go around. Of course, I'm going to take pieces of paper while I'm doing it to shield my floor and other surfaces from overspray. But I just go around, saturate all the ballast with isopropyl alcohol, and then I need to fill. This bottle isn't filled yet, but after the isopropyl alcohol is sprayed, then I go around and I spray the scenic cement and be done with it at that point. It really, you can, on a 4-foot layout like this, I can whip out a whole ballast job start to finish in about 3 hours and have it look pretty clean and decent. So I hope that was useful for you folks, and keep up with me soon. This is my last day working on this layout till next Wednesday, hopefully, but at least I'll have the most difficult parts over with, and I'll be able to get onto the fun stuff like scenery, buildings, painting, foliage, start more building planning. I plan on scratch building some Adobe Spanish Revival buildings for the Old Town San Diego area over here. So I will catch up with you folks after this weekend. Thank you for watching.